got just over a tablespoon and a quarter, maybe closer to a tablespoon and a half of olive oil in my soup pot here. And what I have is a 3.5 pound chicken that I cut up into pieces, the entire thing. So you will see the back, the wings, the thigh, the chicken breast, everything is in there. And it hasn't been seasoned. We'll add the seasoning later on as we build flavors in here. So into that, we're just going to brown off. Well, I can add all of it actually. And you can see what I'm talking about. What I went ahead and do is remove most of the fat. You'll still see little remnants of fat here and there. And just about all of the skin, except on the chicken wing, you will still see the skin. All I want to do, medium heat, and sort of, not really brown it, but sort of seal up, yeah, well, I guess seal it. As that happens, fresh ground black pepper. And it's all about building layers of flavor. And I'm going to go in with salt. I'm going to go not too heavy with the salt at this point, because I'll be using chicken stock in here. And I really want to be mindful of the sodium content of that chicken stock. So 5 to 8 minutes, I'm going to keep stirring it, and then we'll keep building all those flavors and textures and everything else. We're no longer seeing pink, so what we need to do, it's really not going to brown on you unless you go with more oil and more on a higher heat and stuff like that. So at this point, we're going to start adding the onion. And that's just a medium onion that's been diced. If you like it spicy, half of a Scotch bonnet pepper, seeds and everything. We've got garlic. And I like adding a lot of garlic in here because if you have seen my my flu fighting soup that I make, or the flu prevention soup, you will see all of these sort of high in antioxidants and goodness and stuff like that, stuff that's there in that soup, and that one can be found at caribbeanpot.com. Celery, a nice big whack of thyme, and stems and everything, because later on we can remove the stems. And of course some scallion. We're just going to sprinkle, and what we're going to do is give that a stir, and then we're going to let that sort of sweat, sort of cook for about 3 or 4 minutes before we continue. What I also like adding is a nice heaping tablespoon of Caribbean green seasoning at this point as well too. And that there, ladies and gentlemen, is pure gold. If you head over to caribbeanpot.com, I have several versions of Caribbean green seasoning there, and I have a small batch version, which means, and you know, I make it and I store it in these containers here, and or you can put it into your ice trays and freeze them and pop a frozen cube in there, totally up to you. But I have a version where it's a small batch, which means if you don't use it too often, you can make that version. The kitchen is smelling absolutely wonderful at this point. What I want is a bit of grated ginger in there. That ginger is going to do all kind of lovely things to it, and my Caribbean green seasoning does not contain ginger, while some people make it with ginger. I find that certain things, when I use my Caribbean green seasoning, I don't want ginger in, so I leave it out. I add it accordingly. It's now time to add that washed lentil in there. That's 1.5 cups of, I guess would be considered green lentils for texture and body and some more of that goodness. Sweet potato, carrots, and of course some pumpkin, just diced pumpkin. If you don't have access to pumpkin and you want to use butternut squash, rock that butternut squash, nobody ain't eating. More of that texture and acidity and sweetness is going to come compliments of 1 can of stewed tomato, and this can is 540 ml. All we need to do now, give this a stir and bring it all together. And of course we need braising liquid, but we're not done yet. It's all about those wicked flavors of the Caribbean you're going to be adding in here. And yes, later on you will see, Uncle Chris, I won't add any flour dumplings, but I know you are from the Caribbean, or you have Caribbean ancestry and you want that flour dumpling. Maybe you're new to the culture, but you fell in love with flour dumplings, so hey, you want to add some flour dumpling in there, by all means. What I will go in with is a bit of browning, just to give it a bit more color and everything else. And that is just under a teaspoon of good old Caribbean style browning, because you notice I didn't brown any, I didn't caramelize the sugar, the starch and all that. But now we need liquid, and the liquid we're going to use is a combination of water and chicken stock. Now you have a couple options. Well, you have an option of either making this really thick, so you would cut back on the amount of liquid, or later on burn it off to get it nice and chunky and thick and hearty. In my case, I want a bit of broth, and to help bring that nice Caribbean vibe to things, I've got 2 tablespoons of coconut cream. And the coconut cream you will find in most grocery stores now. If you don't have coconut cream, you can add 1.5 cups of coconut milk, because I find that the coconut cream is very concentrated, while the coconut milk we get in North America has a high added water content. This is why it's in a solid form there. You get it in a box like this, yeah? But anyhow, what we're gonna do now is bring this up to a boil. At the very end, we're gonna add some baby spinach to this, just to really hit home with that flu fighting kind of properties. Because you notice we have thyme, we have garlic, we have onion, we have ginger, we have pumpkin, sweet potato, all those things, man. They can, and of course you can't go wrong with a little bit of the chicken noodle, and the flu season goes hand in hand. And remember, the lentils bring properness to the game as well too. Anyhow, enough talking. Bring this up to a boil, Uncle Chris. And listen, now if you don't have that stewed tomato, what I would recommend you do is you roast some tomato in your oven, give it a rough chop. So you just roast it with some olive oil and some black pepper and salt on it, and you give it a rough chop, and then you would toss it in here. Totally up to you. It's been 45 minutes. It's been going on that rolling boil, and the pumpkin is starting to fall apart and add some nice texture to this. And that pumpkin will add a lovely sweetness to this as well. If you wanted to add a bit of cumin, you can add some cumin. I'm not a fan of cumin. You could have added some cumin in here. And you know, you can put any sort, if you want a potato, like regular everyday potato, you can do that as well. And you see, that's the sort of texture that I want. But again, if you want it more thick, totally up to you. I have my washed spinach here, so what I'm going to do is toss that in there, and as I toss it in, I'm going to tuck it down and give it a little stir. And after about a minute or 2, this is when you would taste it for salt and adjust the salt to your liking. At that point, I'm going to add more spinach, but the point is you need the spinach in there first, because that's the last thing we're adding in here, and which will contribute to the overall flavor of things, because it will need salt, right? Anyhow, you understand where I'm coming from. I did have to add a tiny bit of salt to my liking. So Chris here, CaribbeanPot.com, a lovely chicken and lentil soup packed with all kind of antioxidants and goodness for this flu season, this cold. Yo man, right now I just went outside to put rubbish by the street there. I kid you not, with the wind it's about minus 12 degrees Celsius. So guess who's going on cozy up with, I'm going on tucky, look at that. I ain't need bread, nothing, you see that? Boy, it's pure things, pure nice things. I do hope you all get an opportunity to give this one a try. You know, it's a big pot here. Whatever you don't eat tonight, cool it down, put it into a freezer container, and boom, in the freezer. There's gonna be other cold nights in the winter now start. So I'll have this. There's my little remedy for niceness here. Anyhow, I go on.